All month long, we're celebrating and honoring those who have gone through breast cancer.
Approximately 285,000 people will be diagnosed with breast cancer in 2021, and almost 3,000 of them will be men.
There are, however, more than 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the U.S. today.
Yeah, and one of those survivors is our next guest, Steve Cohn, who shared his story with us. Steve, we are really excited to have you here to talk about an issue that doesn't get talked about very much.
No.
You and I have something in common. We're both two-time breast cancer survivors. But you as a male, I mean, that seems to be so rare, and again, something we don't hear about. How did you find it?
Sure. And Christian and Mark, thanks for having me with you today. Yeah, male breast cancer represents only 1% of the cases on an annual basis. In my case, right after I turned 60 in May of 2010, I noticed what looked like a red cyst on my left breast. Didn't hurt, wasn't painful, but I decided to have my doctor, who worked at Mount Sinai, I was living in New York at the time, check it out. And the minute he saw it, he walked me down the hall to the breast cancer center at Mount Sinai, and it turns out I had 3 tumors in my left breast. A few weeks later, they did surgery and removed them. They thought they had caught it early enough, so there was no other follow-up necessary.
Right.
But then in 2012, the cyst reappeared, same spot, same general area. And turns out I had 3 additional tumors, which they removed. And at the same time that was happening, I moved down to DC from New York, and I was told I should get radiation treatment. And I had 6 weeks of radiation treatment at Sibley Memorial Hospital.
Right.
And they also put me on a very common drug for women, breast cancer survivors, called tamoxifen, which maybe, Kristen, you
Yeah, very familiar with that one.
So I was on tamoxifen for 7 years and actually just came off it about a year ago. So, you know, that was the situation. They also removed one of my lymph nodes, but nothing had spread to any of the lymph nodes.
That's great news.
Yeah, I never forget, I was training for a marathon, and I think men, when it comes to your breast, your chest, we don't even think about them at all. And you know, when you train for the marathon, sometimes you have nipple irritation and there's some blood there or whatever. And I just remember being freaked out because that's really the first time I'd even noticed.
Something was different.
Yeah, you don't really notice that. And so I imagine, like we talk about self-exams, guys rarely if ever do it. But for you, because of you, people will start paying attention. So I think it's great. And thank you for sharing your story.
I'm told that breast cancer rarely appears in men under the age of 60. In my case, it appeared right after I turned 60.
Wow.
So that's very different than women, who obviously can get it at any age. And I had no family history, you know, so, but men need to be aware, especially older men.
Where are we at, Steve, with like research? You know, it's October. We talk so much about breast cancer for women and the research there. What have you seen and learned as you've kind of gone through this journey?
Well, it's a very simple answer. There is no research for men.
Wow.
There's never been a clinical study. They don't think there are enough men that they can do that with. So all the follow-up procedures are based upon what works for women, and they hope it works for men. So, meaning taking tamoxifen, for instance. Also, men survivors are supposed to get annual mammograms if they have one breast that was unaffected, like mine, on the right side. And believe it or not, I've had insurance companies deny paying for my mammogram because I'm a guy.
Wow.
So that's why, you know, I thank you guys so much for having me on today to point out that men get breast cancer.
Wow.
Real quick before we let you go, what do you say to men who don't take this seriously?
It can happen to you.
Right.
So if you see what looks like a cyst or a red spot in your breast area, don't ignore it. Have it checked out.
We're so glad Steve's doing great, but what a story and a reminder for all of us, men included. You know, we talk about early detection all the time, and it's as important for us women as it is for you men.
Yeah, like we said, Steve noticed something wasn't right. He checked it out and he acted, and it probably saved his life.
Great message and reminders. Thank you, Steve.